Normally, repeating something over and over quickly becomes boring. So why is it building a factory line to produce items, which then allows you to build more factory lines to produce more items, hooks so many of us? That's certainly the case with Satisfactory for me, but it's not just a one-off. Each year, more and more developers seem to be taking on the factory logistic game niche, accommodating millions of players' attention worldwide. But why is that? I was first struck with the automation bug back in 2016 with the release of Fallout 4's Contraptions DLC. Surprisingly, the factory element was but a tiny addition to the main game, but it allowed me to produce ammunition for my character by linking up conveyors with machines, and I spent hours developing my production lines. But it wasn't until the early access release of Satisfactory in 2019, a purebred factory game, that I became truly hooked. And now, with over 6,000 hours invested within the factory game niche, I'm wondering, why do I enjoy them so much? To answer that, we need to understand, though, what makes these games fun. It comes down to the following: a sense of learning how to do something, the freedom to experiment and do it my own way, and then finally, mastering it. Whether that's creating an efficient factory line or working out the best way to balance resources. The great thing about factory games is that once you've mastered one factory line, the resources produced are then needed for another factory line. This provides our brains with constant endorphin hits. However, with each new line, we need to be challenged, otherwise we'll quickly get bored. This is where factory games are so brilliant, as they naturally lean into progressively more difficult systems. Take Satisfactory, for example. The first step of the game is about understanding the basic concepts through manual resource collection and basic production. You're limited by power production as it isn't automated, stopping you from building massive factories and overwhelming yourself in the early game. And we only have basic maths to work out, allowing us to perfect basic production lines, such as splitting 60 ore from a miner between smelters that consume 30 ore per minute, which are then split between constructors to produce iron rods. The difficulty only really comes apparent when you keep running out of power, or find you're producing more resources than you can run on a single line, such as the case with screws or wire production. However, at this point, you're already ready to proceed to the second step of the game, which is automating power. And before we know it, we're producing items that require two inputs, followed by working with fluids, then byproducts, vehicles, gases, and so on until you're ready to scale the factory to mass production. It's this slow and steady learning curve that continues to flood our brains with the endorphins, positively reinforcing our playstyle until we can't handle the complex systems or the game is mastered, whichever comes first. I'm sure if you think of your favorite factory game, you'll find similar systems to this. Take, for example, in Factorio, where you start off with manual burning drills and proceed to steam power, allowing you to automate items before continuing on. The same goes with Dyson Sphere Program or Tectonica. At first, you rely on manually crafting until you build up your production and power to allow you to automate your lines. Sure, each game has their differences, but at their heart, it's about extracting a raw resource and automating complex systems so that you don't have to do it yourself. We're essentially the king and queens of proactive laziness. That is, at least until a fluffy tail hog walks into our building hologram. Then we have to get proactive. But really, it's about solving puzzles and watching your factories slowly grow and come to life. It's something that's incredibly satisfying, but it also comes down to each individual playstyle. For me, I love building an efficient line, and this can easily be done in Satisfactory as we have plenty of information given to us in each machine's user interface. In comparison, I struggle to love Dyson Sphere Program because the game doesn't provide us with the information about how efficient each each of our production buildings are. I also favor first-person view over top-down, another reason why I've played more Tectonica than Factorio. It's just my personal game preference, and I do see why Factorio is a masterfully crafted game within the niche, but I'm sure you all have your different views as well, and I'd love to hear about them if you have a similar experience with factory games. And if so, which games do you prefer to play yourselves? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this breakdown, make sure to hit the thumbs up as well. For me, I've actually been enjoying a lot of survival crafting games. It's a separate genre altogether in its own right, but what often stops me sinking the thousands of hours into a game is the constant need to harvest resources. Perhaps it's because I've become so hooked on factory games that I find spending countless hours harvesting resources by hand too monotonous. As such, I find myself wanting to find solutions to automating in these games, whether it's getting trolls to knock out trees in copper for me in Valheim, or finding ways to automate the growing and slaughtering of animals for food. It's also something I long for in Enshrouded, and why is after spending a few hundred hours building a nice house in these games that I always return to the factory logistics niche. Why is it that I can spend a few hundred hours in a survival game but thousands building factories? Again, it comes down to the gameplay loop. Building factories to produce items comes with a feeling of a sense of achievement. In survival games though, once you've overcome the difficulty of surviving, there's little more to be satisfied about. Whereas factory games have this perfect blend of I must automate one more thing and how can I figure out this complex line that leaves us glued to the screen until 3 a.m. in the morning, even though we have to get up for work at 8 a.m. I know I'm not the only one. And here's the kicker. While we're all having fun building and optimizing, we're actually learning stuff. Factory games sneakily teach us about efficiency, problem solving, and even a little bit about engineering and logistics. Who knew gaming could be so educational? And then we have the community that surrounds these games. For the most part, the communities are awesome, interested in seeing other people's approach to problem solving and willing to help one another out. And as they tend to be single player and co-op focused, there's a lack of competition, resulting in fewer trolls or community drama. And it's a community I'm proud to be part of, even if my real life friends question how I find factory games so fun. Perhaps I should share this video with them and they'll realize that I'm addicted to the endorphin kick of overcoming the challenge of automating ever complex logistical puzzles, whilst balancing power production to maintain its efficiency. But having written all of this, I'm actually tempted to create a video based specifically around Satisfactory, as I feel there's even more that we can talk about when it comes to why Satisfactory is a masterpiece in gaming. Now, if you would be interested in that, do let me know in the comments below. And if you're wondering what automation games you should check out next, make sure to watch my video on top factory games. But until next time, thank you so much for watching, guys, and thanks to all of our awesome patrons who make content like this possible. Most notably, our Solar Eclipse patron, Firefless, our Lunar Eclipse patrons, The Calamity, Ben, and Star, and our Blood Moon of the day, which today is Papa Snoozy. Until next time, as always, ciao for now.